next we're gonna make our own pastels. So I have my pigment, my water, honey, a sample pigment, my palette knives, my glass palette, and then just kind of a cloth that I can roll out the pastels. So put some dry pigment down and then slowly add some water. Not all pigment is created equal, as we said. So edge on the less water to start so you don't waste your pigment. And the idea is to make it, if you've ever worked with clay, you don't want it too wet. You want it to be kind of malleable, where you could roll it up into a ball. And then you're going to put just a little bit of honey in here. I would say no more than a couple drops to mix into here. And you're going to slowly blend this mixture with your palette knife. And again, think about clay or Play-Doh. You kind of want to be able to mix it with your hands without it completely sticking like mud. And it's going to take some time to figure out what the right mixture is, especially depending on what pigment you're working with. But I love just kind of putting it right here, and you can see I have some areas that are more wet and some that are dry, so make sure that it's evenly blended right on your palette before you kind of roll it out. Now there are some pigments that I let dry for a couple hours and kind of harden before I try to roll them. So you can experiment with that as well. But the beauty of these pastels is you can add water to them in your artwork and kind of use them like a watercolor, or these washes, which are really wonderful. So I'm just going to take this, and you can see it really becomes this clay mixture. Again, you're going to see some of it come off on my hand, but I don't want so much that it's muddy and sticky. And then I can use my cloth or a paper towel to roll it on. I prefer this, flower set cloth because it doesn't have a lot of texture. And then when you get it to the point you want, you can either cut it in two, or just put it aside to dry for about a couple days, 2 to 3 days, depending on your climate, and you'll have your very own pastels. And I have some to the side here, and you can see it's just kind of, you just kind of put it in a ball. I put it on the side on my cloth in order to absorb some of that moisture. And then this is a larger piece, so I can either roll it all the way out and then cut it, or I can put it kind of in a square or rectangle and then cut it lengthwise with either a palette knife or just a regular knife. But you want it about this dryness where when I roll it on my hands, you're going to see just a little bit of the pigment come off, but not so much that it's sticking to my hand. So this one is a little bit more sticky, and you can see if I roll it on the glass, it's still like clay. So I'm going to want that one to dry just a little bit more, or I want to add pigment to it. So it's just that figuring out, it's just that experimenting and figuring out what texture is the best for rolling. And then you can either stamp them or, you put your own mark on it, which is really neat. Just like the other paints, I'm going to mix a little bit of this burnt sienna with white. And I want just kind of a lighter, kind of a peachish, real neutral that I could use, in portraits and landscapes. So, you can easily do the mixing just right here on your palette. So I'm going to mix the water, and then just really blend it really well, especially since there's two colors. So you can absolutely do this. You can do, red and yellow to make some oranges, just like you would any other pigment. It's just that the pigment at this point is dry until you get exactly what you want, as far as the color goes. So I did the mixing. I kind of have it here. It's still pretty wet. What I'm going to do, instead of adding more pigment, because I do think this is close to being okay, I'm going to just kind of put it in a ball to the side. You can see when I roll it, it sticks quite a bit, and I don't want to waste the pigment. So it's just a little too much. So I'm going to put this on my absorbent cloth and let it dry, either for a few hours or if you feel like a day, and then come back to it and experiment with it. One of the most important things you can do when making pigments and sourcing and foraging pigments is to take a note. So, I call it your field notes. So when you're collecting pigments, you want to take notes of where you found them, the location, what you found, and then label them into little jars. And you want to do the same when you're making your own pigments, because a lot of times you'll do some mixing like I did here with that top pastel. I mixed burnt sienna with titanium white. So if I want to recreate that down the road, I want to make sure I have notes. Just like your pigments, when I find it, I want to either take a photo. You could have a little Polaroid or print out a little photo, and then put the location, or little notes about where you found it is a great way to do it, right here in your journal. And you want to do the same with the pigments. I'm going to write down how many parts of white compared to burnt sienna. So I'll put 1 to 1 or 1 to 2. And then, just experiment with it. See how the pigment is coming out. Do I need next time to add more pigment and less water? And you can see here when I'm experimenting, I'm also experimenting with how the water moves this pastel. Now that dark umber color is really, really good, but I want to show you this one. It's so hard. So to me, I just didn't have the right mix that I'm going to see what happens when I add water to it. But it's so hard that the pigment isn't coming out. So either, go back and look at if I added too much honey or not enough water, or maybe it's just a certain color that didn't really mix well into a pastel. So, all of these things are a great way to test them. Now, when I test it with the water, then the pigment's coming out, but I cannot put it down on a dry piece of paper. So these are great ways for you to learn, to do some trial and error, because that truly is what pigment mixing is. I will give you recipes and ideas, but you're going to find that some pigments work differently than others. Some you need less water and some you need more. So this is a great way to take your own notes, to experiment, and I would do the same with my watercolors. Now, this is only 1 day after my watercolors, so they're still wet, but I would take them below and do the exact same thing once they're dry. So they really do need about 2 to 3 days to dry for your watercolors. But I do the exact same thing and take my notes so that it's a lot easier to recreate them and to really learn from the process. So I hope this helps you, and I hope this helps before we start our courses, and I would love to see the process of you making your own pigments. You can share in the Facebook community. If you have questions that come up, please don't hesitate. But really take those field notes, take it with you on the go, and use it in your studio as reference points. It'll really, really help you through this process.